about our review questions that we need to cover. Some review concepts from the last few weeks. Let's start with the first ones. All of these are stop and starts. You work, I explain. All right, here we go. So we're going feet to inches. When we go feet to inches, we are going big to small. And whenever you go big to small, you're going to multiply. And the factor is 12 because there's 12 inches in a foot. So 11 times 12 is 132 inches. Next up, and probably for the last time, we have a conversion. Celsius to Fahrenheit, Fahrenheit to Celsius. Go ahead. All right. So for the first case, we have the formula. This is the one I like to work off of. As I've said every single time, you are more than welcome to use the other formula if you wish. I like this one because it works for both of them, so there's no need for me to memorize two formulas. So F is 9/5 C plus 32. In this case, the Celsius is 5. 9/5 of 5 is 9. 9 plus 32 is 41. Next up, convert 68 degrees to Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means I'm going to plug in a 68 for F. And in solving this, I need to subtract 32 from both sides. That gives me 36. Then I divide by 9/5. And when I do that, I come up with the fact that the Celsius temperature is 20 degrees. Okay, we've done this slide probably, I don't know, 5 times. Plus we've done it on some homeworks. I think you should be in a situation where you're pretty comfortable with it. And after today, we can move on to other types of review situations. All right, next up, here you go. So as we work these questions, I always like to let you see them at least 2 times, preferably 3 or 4 times, to make sure you have them down pat. And remember what we spoke about last week. It doesn't matter how fast you learn something, it matters that you learn something. If a student is proficient at this already, if you're teaching a class years from now, you can have that student go around and help the kids in the class. I used to do that a lot. If you're not teaching a class, then it's about your learning. And if you're already good at it, then this is a chance for some quick practice. And if you're not good at it, then that's okay. You need the extra practice. So for the first question, I equals PRT. I equals PERT, because this is simple interest. So I've got $2,000 at 7% interest for 3 years. Multiplying that out, I come up with $420. Now with that $420, that's how much interest needs to be paid at the end of the 3rd year. What's the total amount you'll have to repay? That's the interest plus the amount you borrowed, which is $24.20. As far as the second question goes, if for some reason you didn't do it yet, do it now. Pull it, stop and start. Now TJ invested $4,000 in a bond at a yearly rate of 2%. If he earned $280 in interest, how long was the money invested? So this is the same formula, kind of like you could use the Fahrenheit Celsius temperature to go back and forth between the two of them. Same thing with I equals PRT. But this time we're going to substitute in for the interest, which is $280. And that's going to equal 4,000 times 0.02 times the time. So that $280 is going to equal 80, because that's 4,000 times 0.02 T, dividing by 80, and we get the time is 3.5 years. Okay. All right, little exchanges here. Let's do stop and start, or pause and play if you want to look at it that way. Go ahead. Okay, so here we go. How many dollars are 150 euros worth? Well, 150 euros, you get $1.14 per euro. So if I cancel out my euros, I'm left with my number of dollars, and I got to do 150 times 1.14. That's $171. How many euros are 325 bucks worth? Well, that would be $325, and you get 0.88 euros per dollar. So I got to do 325 times 0.88, and I get 286 euros. Next up, don't forget, you have your conversions should be on your phone. Okay, so what do we get here? How many quarts are in 40 gallons? Well, gallons is big to small when you go from gallons to quarts. So you multiply 4 quarts in a gallon. So 40 times 4 is 160. How many quarts are in 30 pints? Well, now you're going small to big, okay, because pints to quarts, pints are smaller. So I'm going to divide, and the factor is 2. So 30 divided by 2 is 15. How many pints are in 7.5 gallons? Well, that's big to small. So you're going to multiply across. First, you got to go to quarts and then quarts to pints, unless you happen to walk around and know that there's 8 pints in a gallon. Most people don't know that. So the factor is 4 if we're going from gallons to quarts. 7.5 times 4 is 30. Now I do the 30. I'm going big to small again, quarts to pints. So I'm going to multiply, but this time the factor is 2. So 30 times 2 is 60. All right, here we go. Start it off. Okay. Now, remember the reference value, the amount you started with is 1700. That's what steps up from. So the absolute change is the new value minus the reference or original value. And that would be 2250 minus 1700. So that's a step up of $550. Now the relative change is the absolute change, the 550, divided by the reference value, which in this case is 1700. It's always what you begin with. So 550 divided by 1700 is 32.4%. So that's your relative change. Absolute change is just tell me how much it went up by or down by or whatever. That's 550. The relative compares it to what it started with, so it expresses it as a percent. It's the part of the whole. Okay, little solving percent problems here. Go ahead. Okay. Purchased a shirt labeled pre-tax price of 89 bucks, local tax rate 7%. What's your final cost? There are a few ways to do this. You could figure out the 7% of the 89 and add it to 89, but I'd rather keep the numbers a little simpler than that. So the final cost is the labeled price plus 7% of the labeled price. So in other words, it's the labeled price is 100% of it, so it's 107% times the labeled price. It's kind of like you're factoring there if you remember that. So 107%, which is 1.07 times 89 is $95.23. So to me, that's the quickest way to do it. Like I said, you could have figured out 7% of 89, gotten that answer, and added it to $89. That is an equally successful approach. Okay, a little compound interest here. There's the formula for you to work with. Let's try those 2 problems. Go ahead. Okay, so in the first case, plugging in the formula, the amount in the account, that's what A stands for, is the principal, the starting amount, times 1 plus R over N, and then to the N of the NT power. And it's important to realize N is the number of times that you compound it in a year. And in this case, you're only compounding it once a year. So N is just 1, so it makes life really easy. So it comes out to be 2,500 times 1.1 to the 9 because you're doing it for 9 years. And that works out to be 5,894.87. Again, you're just punching numbers on a calculator. Worth repeating, I like the Texas Instruments 84 Plus, but you could do this on a scientific calculator. Next up, find the amount and the compound interest on 27,000 for 3 years at 5%. Annum compounded annually. Well, again, same thing. The N is equal to 1 because it's only compounded once a year. So that's 27 times 1 plus 0.05 to the 3rd power. And that's going to work out to be 27,000 times 1.05 to the 3rd, which is 31,255.88. As you're going through this, if you're getting these review questions right, They are often not quite as hard as some of the test questions. I would say like half to 2/3 of the test questions are of this level of difficulty, and then 1/3 of them are harder than this. But if you're getting these right as the review questions go along, it means two things. It means you're getting the solid and fundamentals down pat, and the second thing it means is that you are reasonably already well prepared for your test, and that when the pretest comes out and you focus on those questions that'll introduce you to the harder types, then you will be fully prepared for your test. But this is a really good start for any tests or quizzes coming up. Here you go. Little rule of 72 problem here. So the first part of this asks you how long until Jenny's investment doubles. Well, if you have 72, the rule of 72 means start with that, and divide it by the percentage rate, which is 9, you're equal to 8. So it tells you in 8 years the money doubles. Then how much money will Jenny have in 24 years? And a really good way to show that is with a table. So 8 years from now, it doubles to 10,000. 8 years after that, it doubles to 20,000. 8 years after that, it doubles to $40,000. So that's what you would have in the account. All right. So there's a review of all of the review questions for the year. And then we'll get started on some classwork contemplations.